All females have some type of value.
Women who are very promiscuous, they have no value. They only have human value.
So if I take two guys, right? One guy is making, one guy is wildly successful, etc., and another guy's wildly successful. One has a partner count of 1,000, the other one has a partner count of 0. To me, they're still both high value. Just one chose to use his value to attract way more women than another.
But would you make it a prescription then? Would you tell men you should do this? It's good for you to do this.
I think if you're gonna go and be marriage-minded and try to find a girl to take seriously, you should have some experience.
Then that has to add to the value.
I don't think so, man.
I don't see how. If you're saying if you want this thing, and this thing is to get married to a high-value woman, right? To somebody who you consider to be virtuous and good and this type of thing, right? If you're saying that having sex with a multitude of partners is then going to up your chances of being able to do this thing, to accomplish this thing, then I don't see how it's not attributing to the value. Okay.
I look at, like, you can be a virgin as a guy and still be a high-value dude, is how I look at it. I think the women are just a byproduct of your value.
But it is a prescription that you would make?
Your prescription as far as, the 50 girls.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can be high value and not take that prescription.
Right, but you must see some value then in prescribing it.
And the value is from protecting your value. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So
that totally makes sense.
The value is you protecting your value, but you don't need the women for that value.
Right, but I think that here's the entailment.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're prescribing, have sex with 50 women, okay, this is your prescription and the prescription has value, then whatever the hoes are that they're sleeping with, that's an entailment. So the hoe has to have value.
Not necessarily.
Well, you could call them like pawns.
I mean, they would be necessary for you to sleep with 50 women, right?
Not necessarily, because a lot of the girls, let's be honest, they'll be bimbos, stupid chicks, idiots, morons, lower status women.
But necessary for you to sleep with so that you can, right?
I mean, if you can get by,
prescription.
If you can get by, right, with less, sure. But I think a decent barometer is 50 in today's day and age, because it will put you in a position where you'll experience a multitude of different girls with different personality types, different behaviors, different red flags, different green flags, etc. So you'll have a general rubric of, like, okay, these girls that go to the club all the time probably aren't good. I've dealt with like 3 of them now. Okay, these girls that go to sorority, that are from a sorority, and maybe not so good. So, like, you kind of have an idea of, like, all right, this is, you get a generality of things.
Well, so to, like, the olive branch, the meeting you halfway, I would not say for a second that the more sexual experience you have and the more worldly you are, that you're not going to have experience in dealing with worldly women. There's no doubt. Or women who aren't worldly. You're still going to have experience in both. But all I'm saying is that I think it's a logical entailment to say, I'm going to prescribe that you go sleep with, let's just say it's 20, right? It doesn't even have to be 50, 15, 10, 5. It doesn't matter. You and I both know the types of women those guys are going to be sleeping with are going to be easy women, and they're going to be low-value women. They're basically going to be hoes. So if that's the case, that the hoes are who they're going to be sleeping with, then we have now entailed that hoes have to have value, or else you couldn't sleep with them.
I think it's kind of I mean, I think all women have inherent value, though, even hoes.
Yeah,
because
that's what I'm saying,
because like all females have some type of value because they're women. But as far as, like, attributing that value to yourself and taking her serious, I think that's a different thing. So you got to figure out which ones are, worth a relationship and which ones aren't. And I think the way to do that is through, obviously, experiencing.
Now, from our view, from the Christian ethicist view,
sure,
they have no value. They only have human value.
Okay.
I would consider them at the lowest end of the.
If they're not virgins, like what?
Of the value hierarchy. Women who are very promiscuous and they see sex as a tool or as a utility or as a manipulation device or things like this. Instantly, the Christian ethicist is going to look at this and say, this is completely sinful, needs to stop, you're totally valueless, right? Your humanity is still very valuable. You as a person still very valuable. Your salvation is really important to us. This type of sinful behavior from our perspective is completely degrading to society, and we need to stop it by almost any means necessary, because what ends up happening from my perspective is that degeneracy leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy.
Okay.
And there never seems to be a pull back. It's always a push forward. I mean, we're talking about shit now. You guys couldn't even imagine what we're talking about now with, like, trans furries and all this different stuff. You know what I mean? You couldn't have even fathomed that.
That's a new one.
Could you have even fathomed that we would be talking about child genital mutilation? I mean, who would ever have envisioned that this would be the world we live in?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But if you back it up, if you look at kind of the slippery slope argument, quote unquote, this started with an LGBTQ push for equality, and once they have it, you have nothing else to complain about. You have to move the goalpost to the next victim group. Then you have to move the goalpost to the next victim group. And it becomes more and more and more absurd. And that's why you'll see the pendulum eventually is going to swing back the other way by necessity.